Use a warm, empathetic tone of tone as William stood on the woodman porch of his old family ranch house. His rough hands gripped the railing as he watched thick, dark clouds moving across the sky. The clouds looked angry and heavy with snow. 6 long months had passed since his dear wife Mary died in that awful car crash on the main road. Every single day since then felt like trying to climb a tall mountain that had no top to reach. The white envelope from the bank felt heavy in his coat pocket. Inside were papers that said he was 3 months behind on his payments. The numbers on those papers made his stomach hurt. His cattle were not selling for enough money at the market in town. Feed costs kept going up, but the price for beef kept going down. Nothing seemed to work the way it used to when Mary was alive to help him. His 18-year-old daughter Lucy hardly talked to him anymore. She used to be such a happy girl who loved helping with the animals. Now she spent her days reading college books and talking about moving far away to London after she finished school in the spring. The distance between them felt like a cold wall that Thomas did not know how to break down. That very morning at breakfast, Lucy had looked at him across their small kitchen table. Her young face was serious and sad. "We cannot keep going like this, Dad," she had said quietly. Her voice was gentle, but her words cut through his heart like a sharp knife. "The ranch is too much work for just you. Maybe we should sell it and start over somewhere else." Thomas had not known what to say to her. How could he explain that this land was more than just dirt and grass? It was where his grandfather had built their first small house with his own hands. It was where his father had raised prize-winning cattle and taught Thomas everything about farming. It was where Thomas had brought Mary as his new bride 30 years ago. Every fence post and every tree held precious memories. Christmas Eve had arrived like an unwelcome visitor, bringing with it the promise of the worst winter storm anyone had seen in 20 years. The weatherman on the old radio said the snow would be deep and the wind would be dangerous. Thomas pulled his thick coat tighter round his shoulders and walked slowly toward the big red barn. The wind was already picking up speed, making strange, whistling sounds through the bare tree branches. He needed to check on all the animals one more time before the storm hit with full force. The horses would need extra hay, and the cattle would need shelter from the cold wind. Thomas had done these same evening checks thousands of times over the years, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt like it might be the last time Daughters Hay pushed open their heavy barn doors. Thomas wondered if this would be their final Christmas on the land his grandfather had worked so hard to buy many years ago. The thought made his chest feel tight with deep sadness. His eyes stung with tears that he quickly wiped away with his coat sleeve inside the warm barn. The cattle moved quietly in their wooden stalls. The familiar sounds and smells brought him some comfort. He could hear them breathing softly and moving their hooves in the clean straw. These animals had been his friends for years. They knew his voice and trusted him to take care of them. Thomas ran his weathered hand along the smooth wooden beams that supported the barn roof. His father had installed those beams 40 years ago when Thomas was just a young boy learning to milk cows. Every single board in this barn told a story. Every corner held a special memory of better times when the family worked together and laughed together. He remembered helping his father fix those same beams during hot summer when he was 12 years old. His mother had brought them cold lemonade and fresh cookies while they worked. Mary had helped him paint the barn doors red when they were first married. Lucy had taken her first steps right here on this same floor when she was just a baby. The wind outside was getting stronger now, making the barn walls shake slightly. Thomas could hear it whistling through the small cracks round the windows. The storm was coming whether they were ready or not. "I do not know how to do this without you, Mary," Thomas whispered to the empty air around him. His voice sounded small and lost in the big barn. He had said these same words every night for 6 months, but tonight they felt heavier than usual. The storm outside grew stronger and stronger, rattling the old windows and making the whole barn tremble. Thomas stood there in the warm barn, surrounded by his animals and his memories, wondering what tomorrow would bring. He did not know that this Christmas Eve would change everything. He did not know that help was coming in the most unexpected way. He only knew that he felt more alone than ever before. With his wife gone, and his daughter ready to leave him to use a warm, empathetic to Nettie winter storm hit much harder than anyone had expected it would. The snow fell from the dark sky like thick white curtains that never stopped moving. Thomas could barely see 10 feet in front of his face as he walked through the deep snow. The wind howled like a wild animal, making it hard to hear anything else. He was just finishing his evening check of all the animals when he heard something very strange cutting through the loud howling wind. It sounded like crying, but this was not the sound of an animal crying. This sounded like a human person crying for help. Thomas stopped walking and listened carefully. Yes, there it was again. Someone was definitely calling for help somewhere out in the terrible storm. His heart started beating faster as he realized that someone might be in serious trouble on a night like this. Thomas quickly grabbed his heavy flashlight from the barn and turned it on. The bright beam cut through the falling snow, but he still could not see very far. His old boots crunched loudly through the deep snow as he made his way carefully toward the main road that ran past his property. Each step was difficult because the snow was already knee-deep and getting deeper every minute. The crying sounds were getting louder as he got closer to the road. Thomas moved as fast as he could through the snow, his flashlight beam moving back and forth as he searched for whoever was in trouble. Then he saw it. There in the deep ditch beside the road was a small blue car that had been turned completely on its side. White steam was rising up from under the crumpled front hood, making ghost-like shapes in the cold air. The car looked badly damaged, and Thomas could see that the windshield was broken into many pieces. "Hello," Thomas called out as loudly as he could over the sound of the wind. "Is anyone hurt in there? Please help us," came a woman's voice from inside the damaged car. The voice sounded scared and desperate. "My wife is having a baby." Thomas felt his heart start racing even faster. He pointed his flashlight through the broken car window and saw 2 women trapped inside the small car. One woman was clearly in great pain, her face twisted up, and her breathing very heavy and fast. The other woman looked much younger and very frightened. "The roads are all blocked with snow," the younger woman said, her voice shaking. "We were trying to drive to the hospital in town, but our car hit a patch of ice and slid off the road. We have been stuck here for almost an hour." Thomas looked round at the terrible storm and knew right away that no ambulance could possibly reach them on a night like this. The phone lines were down because of the high winds, and the nearest hospital was 30 long miles away through roads that were now completely blocked with deep snow and fallen tree branches. "We need to get both of you to my house right away," Thomas said, his mind working quickly to figure out what to do. "It is warm there, and we can call for help once the storm passes. Can you walk at all?" The woman who was in labor was named Emma. She gripped her partner's hand very tightly and tried to speak between the waves of pain. "I do not think I can move very much," she said with great difficulty. "The baby is coming right now. I can feel it." Thomas had helped deliver baby calves many times during his years of working on the ranch. He knew how to help when animals were having babies. But a human baby was completely different from a calf, and he felt very scared about what might happen. Still, he knew that he was their only hope for a survival on this terrible night. The younger woman, whose name was Kate, looked at Thomas with tears in her eyes. "We do not know what to do," she said. "Emma has been in labor for many hours, but we thought we had more time to get to the hospital." Thomas tried to make his voice sound calm and confident, even though he felt very nervous inside. "Do not worry about anything," he told them. "We are going to take care of both of you. My house is not far from here, and it is warm and dry. We will figure out everything else once we get you both safe." He knew that moving Emma would be very difficult and possibly dangerous, but leaving them in the cold, damaged car would be even worse. The temperature was dropping fast, and the car was not running anymore to keep them warm. Thomas looked at the two frightened women and made a decision. "I'm going to help you get out of this car very carefully, and then we are going to walk slowly to my house. We will take our time and stop whenever you need to rest." The storm continued to rage around them, but Thomas felt something new growing inside his chest. For the first time in many months, someone needed his help, and he was the only person who could provide it. This gave him a sense of purpose that he had not felt since his wife Mary had died. Use a warm, empathetic tone getting Emma and her partner Kate to the house was not easy at all. It took them 20 long minutes of very careful walking through the terrible storm. The snow was still falling hard, and the wind kept trying to push them off balance. Thomas walked on one side of Emma, supporting her weight with his strong arm round her shoulders. Kate walked on the other side, carrying their small hospital bag that they had packed earlier that day. Emma had to stop walking several times because the pain was getting much worse. Each time a contraction hit her, she would grab onto Thomas and Kate and breathe very hard until it passed. Thomas tried to be gentle but also quick, knowing that they needed to get inside where it was warm and safe. When they finally reached the front door of the old ranch house, all three of them were covered from head to toe in white snow. Their clothes were wet and cold, and they were all breathing hard from the difficult walk. Lucy was sitting quietly in the living room reading one of her school books when they suddenly burst through the front door. She looked up from her reading with great surprise and jumped up quickly from her comfortable chair by the fireplace. "Dad, what is happening?" Lucy asked with confusion in her voice. She had never seen her father bring strangers into their house before, especially not in the middle of a terrible storm. "This lady is having a baby," Thomas said, breathing heavily and shaking snow off his coat. "We need to help her right away." Lucy's eyes went very wide with shock and fear. "But, Dad, we do not know how to deliver a human baby," she said, her voice getting higher with worry. Just then, Emma cried out loudly in pain. She doubled over and grabbed Kate's hand very tightly. The contractions were definitely getting much stronger and much closer together. Everyone in the room could see that the baby was going to be born very soon, whether they were ready or not. Thomas felt scared. But then he remembered something very important that his wife Mary always used to say during difficult times. When people need help, you do not think about what you cannot do. You just do whatever you can do. These words gave him strength and helped him think more clearly. "Lucy, go get clean towels and start boiling hot water on the stove," Thomas said in a calm but firm voice. "Kate, help me get Emma comfortable on the couch by the fireplace where it is warmest." For the next 3 long hours, the three of them worked together as a team. Thomas tried his best to remember everything he knew about helping animals give birth on the ranch. He had delivered dozens of calves over the years, and while a human baby was different, some things were the same. Lucy moved quickly around the house, boiling water in big pots and bringing clean towels from the linen closet. She also brought pillows and blankets to make Emma more comfortable. Kate stayed right beside Emma the whole time, holding her hand tightly and whispering encouraging words in her ear. "You are doing so well," Kate would say softly. "The baby will be here soon, and everything will be fine." Lucy surprised everyone, including herself, with how calm and helpful she became during this emergency. She seemed to know exactly what to do without being told. She moved around the house with a sense of purpose that Thomas had not seen in her for many months. It was like she had suddenly become a different person. Emma worked very hard through each painful contraction. Sometimes she would cry out, and sometimes she would just breathe very heavily. Kate never let go of her hand, and Thomas stayed nearby, ready to help in whatever way he could. The old living room became warm and cozy with the fireplace burning brightly outside. The storm continued to rage, but inside the house something beautiful and miraculous was about to happen. Just as the first light of the sun began to appear in the sky on Christmas morning, baby James decided it was time to enter the world. Emma gave one final big push, and suddenly there he was, a tiny, perfect baby boy. His first cry filled the small living room with the most beautiful sound that any of them had ever heard in their real lives. It was a strong, healthy cry that told everyone that baby James was going to be just fine. Emma and Kate both started crying tears of pure joy and relief. They had been so scared during the long night. But now their baby was finally here, and he was perfect. Lucy very gently wrapped the tiny baby in one of Mary's old quilts that had been stored in the bedroom closet. The quilt was soft and warm, and it had been made by Thomas's mother many years ago. It felt right to use something so special for this new little life. Thomas stood back and watched as the two women held their new baby for the first time. He felt something important shift deep in his chest. For the first time since his dear wife Mary had died 6 months ago, Thomas felt real hope growing in his heart. This Christmas morning had brought a miracle into their home. Use a warm, empathetic tone as the afternoon sun came out and the storm finally began to clear away. Help arrived at the ranch house. The snowplow trucks had worked hard all morning to open the main roads, an ambulance with flashing lights pulled up outside, followed by 2 police cars. The paramedics knocked loudly on the front door, ready to help with any emergency. But by the time these helpers arrived, something very special had already formed between the two families. During the long night of helping baby James come into the world, Thomas, Lucy, Kate, and Emma had become much more than just strangers who had met during a storm. Kate was a trained nurse who had just moved to their area only 2 weeks ago. She had gotten a new job at the local medical center in the next town over. Emma was a school teacher who was looking for work somewhere in the countryside, far away from the busy city where they used to live. They had been driving through Thomas's area for the first time when the terrible storm hit their car. "We do not know how to thank you for everything you have done," Kate said with tears in her eyes as they prepared to leave for the hospital. The paramedics wanted to check baby James to make sure he was completely healthy after being born. "At home, you saved our lives," Emma added softly, holding her tiny son close to her chest. "We would have died in that cold car if you had not found us and brought us here." Thomas felt something growing in his heart that he had not felt for many long months. It was like he had a real purpose again, like he mattered to someone. For so long after Mary died, he had felt useless and alone, but helping these two women had made him feel important again. "You do not need to thank me at all," Thomas said, his voice gentle and kind. "Anyone else would have done exactly the same thing. When people need help, you help them. That is just what good people do." Lucy had been quiet most of the day, just watching everything happen round her. She had helped so much during the night, but now she seemed thoughtful and distant again, suddenly. She spoke up with an idea that surprised everyone. Dad, you know, the old cottage behind the barn, the small one that Grandpa built when he was young. Thomas nodded slowly. He knew the cottage very well. The small house had been built by his father many years ago when Thomas was just a boy. It had been empty and unused since his father passed away 3 years earlier. The cottage was old but still solid and strong. What if Emma and Kate needed a place to stay for a while? Lucy continued, her voice getting more excited. Kate could help you with the animals when they get sick. She knows about medical things. And Emma could tutor the kids in the village who need extra help with their schoolwork. Thomas looked at his 18-year-old daughter with completely new eyes. Just yesterday morning, she had been an angry, distant teenager who only talked about leaving home and moving far away to London. But somehow, during this one special night, she had become a thoughtful young woman with good ideas and a caring heart. Kate and Emma looked at each other with surprise and hope. They had worried about where they would live and how they would make money to support their new baby. Finding a safe place to call home had been their biggest concern. "We would absolutely love that," Kate said softly, her voice full of emotion. "We have been looking everywhere for somewhere quiet and peaceful to raise James, somewhere safe where he can grow up happy. The cottage probably needs a lot of work," Thomas warned them honestly. "Nobody has lived there for 3 years, so there might be problems with the roof or the pipes. It would not be fancy or modern like houses in the city. We are both very good with our hands." Emma smiled for the first time that day. "And we are definitely not afraid of hard work. We can fix whatever needs to be fixed." Kate nodded in agreement. "I grew up on a farm, so I know how to repair things, and Emma is very good at painting and making things look nice." Lucy looked at her father with hopeful eyes. They could pay a little bit of rent to help with the money problems, and Kate could take care of sick animals instead of you having to drive all the way to town to find a veterinarian. Thomas felt his heart getting warmer and fuller. The ranch had been so quiet and lonely since Mary died. Having other people living nearby, especially people who had become like family during one amazing night, would change everything. For the first time in many months, Thomas smiled a real, genuine smile that reached all the way to his eyes. "I think that sounds like a wonderful idea," he said. "You are welcome to stay as long as you want." Baby James made a small sound in his mother's arms, as if he was agreeing with the plan. Everyone laughed, and the sound filled the old ranch house with joy and hope for the future. Use a warm, empathetic tone. 3 months had passed since the terrible Christmas Eve storm, and the Williams ranch looked completely different from before. The old cottage behind the red barn now had bright flower boxes hanging in every window. Red and yellow flowers spilled over the sides, making the small house look cheerful and welcoming. A small vegetable garden was starting to grow beside the cottage, with neat rows of carrots, beans, and tomatoes that Kate and Emma had planted together. Baby James had grown bigger and stronger every day. His happy laughter could be heard all across the yard every single morning when Kate carried him outside to get fresh air. The sound of a baby laughing had brought new life to the quiet ranch that had been so sad and empty for many months. Kate's nursing skills had already helped Thomas saved sick calves that might have died without her knowledge. Word about her abilities spread quickly to all the neighboring farms in the area. Soon, other ranchers from miles round were calling and asking Kate to come help with their sick animals too. They were happy to pay her good money for her services. This extra income was exactly what Thomas needed most. For the first time in almost a year, he was able to make his full payment to the bank. The heavy envelope of threatening letters was replaced with a receipt that showed his account was current. The terrible worry that had kept him awake at night finally began to disappear. Emma had started tutoring children in the village 3 days every week. She worked with kids who needed extra help with their reading, writing, and mathematics. The parents were grateful to have someone so patient and kind helping their children learn. Emma loved working with the young students, and they loved her gentle way of teaching. Lucy, who had spent months planning to leave for London after graduation, made a surprising decision. She decided to stay at the ranch and help her father run the family business. She enrolled in online business management courses and spent hours learning about modern farming methods, marketing, and financial planning. Lucy had many new ideas for expanding their ranch operation. She wanted to start selling their beef directly to restaurants in nearby towns. She also thought they could offer tours of the ranch for school children to learn about farm life. Her energy and fresh thinking brought new hope to the old family business. The small cottage bustled with life and activity every day. Kate and Emma had truly become like family members rather than just tenants who paid rent. They shared meals together, helped with ranch work, and spent evenings talking and laughing round the kitchen table. Lucy discovered that she loved spending time with baby James during her free hours. She would sit with him in the sunny cottage living room, teaching him simple nursery rhymes and playing peekaboo games that made him giggle. She also enjoyed helping Kate and Emma tend their growing garden. Thomas often stood on his familiar wooden porch in the peaceful evenings, watching his daughter Lucy play with baby James while Kate and Emma prepared dinner inside the cottage. The sound of laughter and conversation filled the air where for so long there had been only silence and sadness. The ranch that had felt like it was dying slowly came back to life. There were always people talking, working, and enjoying each other's company. The loneliness that had eaten away at Thomas's hut for months was completely gone. One warm evening in late spring, Lucy came out and joined her father on the porch, where he was watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. "Dad, do you ever think about that Christmas Eve night? How scared we all were when everything seemed hopeless." Thomas put his strong arm round his daughter's shoulders and pulled her close. "I think about how sometimes our very darkest moments can lead us to our brightest days," he said thoughtfully. "Your mother Mary always believed that helping other people was the most important thing we could ever do in life. That terrible night, when we helped Kate and Emma, we ended up helping ourselves too." Lucy leaned comfortably against her father's shoulder, feeling safe and happy. "I am so glad I decided to stay here. Dad, this place feels like a real home again, just like it used to when Mom was alive." Thomas looked out over his land with pride and contentment. This was the same land where 3 generations of his family had worked hard, loved deeply, and built their dreams with their own hands. Now it would continue for another generation, filled with new voices, new laughter, and new hope for the future. The cottage windows glowed warm and yellow in the gathering dusk of evening. Through those windows, Thomas could see Emma singing a gentle lullaby to baby James while Kate prepared bottles for his night feeding. The peaceful scene filled his heart with joy. Thomas realized something very important in that quiet moment. What he had thought was the end of his family's story had actually been a brand new beginning. Sometimes the very best things in life come from the most unexpected places, and the greatest gift any person can give to others is simply an open heart ready to help. The end.